The qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix provided an extremely intense session, filled with discussion points, ranging from the unexpected elimination of Lawson and Antonelli in the first phase, to McLaren's dominance on the front row, and Ferrari's disappointing performance in the final phase. The starting grid is set for a remarkable turnaround tomorrow under the heavy, rainy skies of Melbourne. However, it remains to be seen how today's session harmed Ferrari, and who, apart from McLaren, managed to stand out. Australia continues to surprise, and the fact that both Williams drivers qualified for the final phase for the first time in a decade is only one element that makes tomorrow's race even more anticipated. Nevertheless, several other narratives have left the teams perplexed, beginning with the episode involving Antonelli and Lawson. The Mercedes driver left the track at the fourth curve, damaging the car's floor, which cost him valuable time on his last two attempts, and ultimately was not enough to secure the 15th position and advance to the next phase. Adding to the irony, he was eliminated by the rookie Borto, who passed his teammate Hülkenberg and Lawson as well, after being labeled as a second-rate driver by Helmut Marko. This achievement sent a strong message in a situation of intense pressure and intimidation from the grid veteran. Yet, this incident is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the qualifying stories in Australia. Liam Lawson was undoubtedly the biggest disappointment this Saturday, not only because he showed no promising signs during the first two practice sessions and failed in the third, but also because it was expected that he would at least reach the final phase of qualifying, at a time when his position is under intense threat from Tsunoda, who will start in the fifth position and made a striking statement for the entire Red Bull family. This setback was the last thing Lawson needed to secure his future with the Austrian team. Discussing the reasons for his unsatisfactory performance, the New Zealand driver stated that a difficult start was already anticipated. He explained that the first laps would naturally be slower, and that the plan was to improve as the session progressed. However, leaving the track on the second lap compromised the entire strategy. He added that his last lap was fast, but the time lost in the final sector was considerable. He also noted that missing the third free practice session did not help, and that leaving the track during qualifying should never have happened. He revealed that before the ninth curve he was 1/2 of a second faster, but he experienced a slight slip between the 9th and 10th curves, indicating that the tires were already beginning to lose grip, an issue he had been facing throughout the weekend and which he did not have the chance to test during the third free practice session. Lawson's situation does not look promising, as he began the season under extreme pressure, and with the expectation of reaching levels close to Verstappen. The Dutch driver will start on the second row, and although the gap to McLaren is considerable, Lawson's presence in the final qualifying phase would have sent a robust message for his future with the team. Instead, he now has to contend with rumors, circulating since the first race, that he might be replaced by Tsunoda. Looking at the starting grid, the Japanese driver is only 2 positions behind Verstappen, exactly where one expects the second Red Bull driver to be. The car is challenging to drive, a fact acknowledged by both Verstappen and Lawson. But the first qualifying session suggested that Lawson behaves like a disguised Pérez. It is now up to him to prove otherwise. Lawson was not the only disappointment on the grid. Ferrari delivered a lamentable performance in the final qualifying phase, and now must settle for a distant start in the fourth row, occupying the 7th and 8th positions. The team's only hope is that the car has been adapted for wet track conditions, which are expected to prevail in tomorrow's race. However, even under such circumstances, the prospects are not very promising, as they remain considerably far from the leaders. Of course, unexpected events may occur, and a surprising turnaround could be advantageous. But there is also the risk of further setbacks, since the team is caught in the middle of the pack, surrounded by drivers capable of causing disruptions. Hamilton commented on the qualifying session when asked about the car setup for the race, admitting that he still needs to learn its peculiarities before the event. The driver, who is a 7-time world champion, stated that overall he felt good and enjoyed his time on the track. He explained that everything has been new this weekend, from his first free practice with Ferrari to the other sessions and the qualifying itself. and that adapting to a car so different from any he had driven before has been a great challenge. He also noted that he did not expect to be so far back, and that it is necessary to understand why the team could not keep up with the leader's pace. Hamilton stressed that he had never driven this car in the rain, and does not even know the proper settings for wet conditions, which will force him to study them the night before the race. He also mentioned that he will have only 3 laps to learn how the car behaves in these conditions before the race begins. Having qualified in the 8th position, the expectation is that the track will be wet. For him, this means having to quickly learn how the car reacts under such circumstances. Ferrari's current hope is that the gap between Hamilton and Leclerc in qualifying was not too wide. At one point, Hamilton was only 1/10 of a second behind his teammate. However, there is much work to be done, and Leclerc offered a rather bleak forecast for Saturday's qualifying session, describing it as the worst he could imagine. He observed that since the morning the car's performance did not match that of the previous day, and claimed to have an idea of the reason, although it is necessary to analyze the data. According to his explanation, the decision made for the weekend was correct, but it resulted in a slight loss of performance, and finishing in the 7th and 8th positions turned out to be disappointing, as he had not even considered that possibility in the worst case. Interesting narratives also emerged from teams such as Williams, which along with Ferrari and McLaren, was the only team to bring both of its cars to the final qualifying phase. This milestone is remarkable for a team that had already attracted attention during the pre-season tests in Bahrain and in the free practice sessions in Australia. It seems they were not merely making a fuss, and may truly contend for the 5th position in the Constructors' Championship, which would be an extraordinary achievement, considering that their maximum goal until last year was to finish in the 6th position. With the arrival of Sargent, the team's culture underwent a significant change. Although he qualified behind Albon in the 10th position while Albon secured the 6th, the Thai driver will start the race ahead of Ferrari's 2 cars. This circumstance represents an excellent opportunity for the team to accumulate valuable points. And with rain being a decisive factor tomorrow, anything may happen depending on how the drivers adapt to the challenging condition. Verstappen also deserves recognition, as although he does not have the fastest car, and in certain situations, not even the 2nd fastest, he managed to be the quickest after McLaren's cars. The Dutch driver's expectations for this race were minimal, as he knew he did not have real chances of contending for victory against a car as competitive as that of the Woking team. However, with rain being his greatest ally, Helmut Marko admitted that Verstappen's performance will be the team's main trump card tomorrow. It remains to be seen whether he will deliver an exceptional performance and overtake McLaren in claiming victory. Only the race will provide that answer. Discussing McLaren, this team may reveal several answers about its performance throughout the season. Starting the race with both cars on the front row was exactly what was expected, with the most dominant car on the grid. However, with 2 drivers determined to demonstrate that they are the team's future champions, the race may prove to be more competitive than anticipated. Piastri had already shown considerable potential in the previous season, and now that everything is starting anew, one can expect an opening comparable to that of Monza in 2024.